I'd been invited to this barbecue through my buddy Mark, who was dating Eli's sister. Technically, I hadn't seen Eli in years. Back in college, he was the kind of guy who threw parties in other people's apartments and somehow still walked away with their food and beer. I thought time might have changed him. I was wrong. He'd spotted me by the cooler, holding a cheap brand soda, and that was enough of a cue. "Hey, look who it is, Mr. Freelance Writer himself," he said, leaning into his lawn chair like the words deserved applause. "Still working from your couch, man?" A few people laughed. Not meanly, just that social reflex laugh people give when they don't know which way the joke's supposed to land. I smiled, because that's what you do when you're the punchline and you're still holding a plate of food. "Something like that," I said. It wasn't worth the argument. Not then. He didn't stop, though. Eli never stopped once he felt a rhythm. "You know, my company's hiring sales reps," he said. "Good benefits. You'd have to put on pants, though." That one got a louder laugh. Even his wife Leah smiled. One of those tight smiles that looks more like a flinch. She glanced at me, then back at him, like she was silently apologizing for his existence. I told myself to let it go. I'd come here to relax. I had enough on my plate, literally and figuratively. Work had been slow, rent had gone up, and I'd been writing ad copy for small hardware stores to make ends meet. Nothing glamorous, but it kept the lights on. Still, something about Eli's tone crawled under my skin. An hour later, after a few beers, he wandered back over. "You ever think about getting a real job?" he asked, half drunk and half serious. I didn't even look up from my burger. Define real. "You know, salary, benefits, maybe a team that depends on you. Not just sitting alone typing words nobody reads." I almost laughed. The irony was, my last campaign had helped a small flooring company triple their online sales. But guys like Eli didn't understand value unless it came with a logo or a paycheck stub. His wife, Leah, stood behind him now, holding a tray of lemon bars. She mouthed something, maybe sorry, then turned toward the picnic table. That's when I noticed it. Her phone, face up on the table beside the lemonade pitcher, lit up with a notification. It wasn't my habit to snoop, but the preview flashed his name. Eli's second account. New message received. I froze. Most people wouldn't catch that, but I had. See, years ago, I used to handle social media scheduling for small businesses and a few individuals who wanted to manage appearances. It was a side gig, part of the freelance hustle. One of them had been Eli. He'd asked me to set up a private profile under a fake name, mostly to network discreetly. I didn't pry, but the tone of his messages, the timing, the kinds of photos he requested help with. I knew exactly what it was for. I'd deleted the account from my dashboard years ago, but apparently he hadn't deleted it himself. So when I saw that notification pop up next to his wife's hand, I realized he'd gotten careless. Maybe he'd logged in on her phone once. Maybe he thought she'd never notice. He must have felt my eyes on him because he looked over. "What?" I shrugged. "Nothing. Just thought I recognized your old handle." He laughed, loud and loose. "Oh, you mean the burner? Man, that was college stuff. Ancient history." Leah turned her head. "What burner?" His smile faltered just enough to be visible. "Inside joke," he said quickly. She frowned, still holding the tray. "You sure?" He waved her off. "Yeah, babe, don't worry about it." But her expression said she would. The rest of the night moved in slow motion. Kids ran through sprinklers. Someone lit tiki torches. Eli switched from beer to whiskey. Every time I tried to leave, he'd find me again. He was one of those people who couldn't stand not being the loudest in the group. At one point, I went inside to grab another soda. The kitchen was cooler, quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the sound of Leah rinsing dishes. She looked tired, like someone who'd memorized every word of her husband's show but stopped finding it funny years ago. "Hey," I said softly. Sorry about earlier. He gets a little carried away. She smiled without looking up. He always does. Don't take it personally. Easier said than done. She finally met my eyes. You went to college with him, right? Yeah. Was he always like this? I hesitated. More or less. She shut off the tap and dried her hands. He's different lately. Always on his phone. Always working late. I shouldn't be telling you this. I shook my head. You're fine. We stood there in silence for a few seconds, the kind that feels heavier than it should. Then her phone buzzed again from the counter behind me. Same notification. Eli's second account. New message. She glanced at it, then at me. What's that? I could have lied. I could have said I didn't know. But there's something about watching someone else's trust crack open in real time that makes you feel complicit if you don't at least tell them where the edge is. You might want to check that, I said quietly. I didn't stay to see what happened next. I walked out to the backyard, grabbed my jacket, and told Mark I had an early morning. He didn't ask questions. The air had cooled, the smell of barbecue turning sour as the coals burned low. Eli was by the fire pit, telling another story that made him the hero. He barely noticed me leave. As I reached my car, I saw Leah step out of the house, phone in hand. She wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. Just walking, slow and steady, like someone who'd found a puzzle piece that didn't fit anymore. I drove home with the windows down, trying to convince myself I hadn't crossed a line. But somewhere between the parking lot and my apartment door, I realized that part of me had wanted this. Not the pain it caused her, but the silence it would finally bring him. The next morning, I woke up to a string of missed calls from Mark. Dude, what happened last night? Eli's freaking out. Leah left in the middle of the night. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I made coffee and stared at my laptop. I tried to write an article about home repair tips, but couldn't focus. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Leah. Leah. Did you know? Me. About what? Leah. The messages. The account. Me. I did. From years ago. I shouldn't have said anything. Leah. No, you should have. Thank you. I didn't reply. The kettle whistled. The day went on. By afternoon, Mark called again. Bro, Eli's saying you hacked him or something. He's losing it. Said his wife found screenshots. I didn't hack anyone. Yeah, I told him that. But he's drunk and loud. He's blaming you for everything. I sighed. Let him. You okay, man? I will be. After the call, I sat by my desk and opened the old drive where I used to keep client files. Out of curiosity, or maybe guilt, I searched for Eli's folder. It was still there, untouched since 2019. Inside were his setup instructions, message drafts, and one exported chat log he'd once asked me to archive just in case. I hadn't looked at it since. I should have deleted it years ago, but that night I didn't. I just renamed it for closure, TXT, and closed the lid. The following weekend, there was another barbecue invitation, from Mark again. Leah's moving out, he said over text. Eli wants to talk, says he owes you an apology. I stared at the message for a long time. Maybe he did, or maybe he wanted to find a new target for the wreckage he'd built himself. Either way, I wasn't sure I cared anymore. Still, something in me wanted to see what apology looked like coming from him. So I typed back, Sure, I'll come by. I didn't know then how much worse it was about to get, how that second barbecue would turn into something no one could take back. But that's where this starts. Not with revenge, with restraint that finally ran out. He looked worse than I expected. Eyes bloodshot, a day's stubble, shirt half tucked like he'd stopped caring halfway through getting dressed. He wasn't holding beer this time, just his phone, screen cracked, case dented at the corner. You happy now? He said. I kept my tone even. Morning to you too. He pushed past me before I could answer properly. The smell hit first. Whiskey and sweat and something faintly metallic. Maybe from the bar countertop he'd probably leaned on too long the night before. I lost everything, he muttered. She took the kids, her stuff, half the account. You couldn't keep your mouth shut for one night? I shut the door. You humiliated me in front of 20 people. You think I planned this? He turned, eyes flicking between my laptop and the old drive beside it. Don't start pretending you didn't enjoy it. You've hated me since college. I didn't deny it. You made it easy. He laughed once, a dry sound. So you told her. I didn't. She saw the notification. Right, because you just happened to be standing there. I leaned against the wall. You brought this on yourself. He stared at me for a long time, jaw tight, then looked around my small apartment, the half-painted wall, the stack of notebooks, the old couch with a sag in the middle. You live like this and still think you're better than me? I think I'm quieter than you, Hassan, I said. That's enough. He pocketed his phone. If she files for divorce, I'm ruined. You were already ruined, I said softly. He moved toward me fast, but stopped short, hands shaking, anger turning into something smaller. You always wanted to prove something. Maybe, I said, but not like this. He stood there breathing hard, then finally stepped back. Stay away from her. She texted me, not the other way around. He didn't answer, just walked out, slamming the door hard enough to shake the frame again. After he left, I sat for a long time staring at the door. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, not from fear exactly, but from the rush of everything that had just come up. Part of me wanted to delete every file with his name on it, erase any proof that our paths had ever crossed. But another part wanted to keep it, in case he tried something worse. That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound from the hallway, footsteps, elevator hum, even the soft thud of mail through the slot, felt like him coming back. I kept replaying that barbecue in my head, the way he'd laughed, the look on Leah's face, the way she'd mouthed, sorry, before everything cracked open. Maybe I hadn't meant to ruin his life, but I couldn't ignore the small, cold truth underneath. I hadn't stopped it either. 2 days later, Mark called again. You need to hear this from me before you see it online, he said. See what? He hesitated. Eli posted something. About you. I opened my laptop, logged into Facebook, and there it was. A long, angry post on his profile. Public, tagging my name. Funny how people call themselves friends while they destroy families. Watch who you let near your wife. Comments poured in. Half were mutual acquaintances, half strangers feeding off drama. A few defended me, most didn't. The damage was instant. I messaged Mark. He's unhinged. Mark replied, he's drunk again. I'll talk to him. But within an hour, Eli had uploaded screenshots, doctored ones, faked chat messages supposedly between me and Leah, making it look like we'd been talking for months behind his back. My stomach turned cold. I tried calling him, but he ignored it. Then he texted instead, you wanted honesty? Here's your version of it. I didn't respond. There was no point. By evening, Leah called. Her voice was small, shaking. He posted fake messages, she said. He's losing it. I know. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Neither did I. There was a pause. He broke my phone, said I was lying. I'm staying with my sister for now. Good, I said quietly. That's good. Then softer. Are you safe? She hesitated. For now. The line clicked dead before I could say more. The next morning, I found a manila envelope taped to my door. No name, just a thin strip of duct tape holding it in place. Inside was a printed copy of Eli's Facebook post, the comments highlighted in yellow, and a note scrawled across the bottom. "You started this. You finish it." I looked up and down the hall. Empty. For the first time, I thought about calling the cops, but what would I tell them? That my old friend was angry and bad at letting go? Instead, I took photos of everything, timestamped them, and emailed them to myself. Then I opened that old drive again, the one with the chat logs. There it was, the unedited export from years ago, full of his own words, his own flirtations under fake names, all time-stamped. Proof. I hovered over the file, then dragged it into a new folder labeled Insurance. That weekend, Mark texted again. He's throwing another barbecue, wants to make peace. I almost laughed. You serious? He says he's sober now, wants to apologize in front of everyone. Leah might come too. Something about it felt wrong, but curiosity, pride maybe, won over caution. I'll come, mice, I said. Mark replied, good. Maybe we can end this. The day of the barbecue, the weather turned weirdly still. Humid, no breeze. The kind of air that made shirts stick to your back. When I arrived, the yard was quieter than before. Fewer guests, just a handful of faces I recognized. Eli was by the grill again, sober-looking, smiling too much. Leah stood near the porch, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He waved when he saw me. Glad you came, man. I nodded, keeping my distance. He motioned toward a table set with beers and paper plates. Truce? Depends on the terms. He chuckled. No terms, just burgers. I didn't trust it, but I played along. For a while, it almost felt normal. People talking, music low, kids tossing a football. Then Eli clinked his beer bottle with a fork. Hey, everyone, he said. I just want to say something real quick. I froze. Last time we were here, things got tense. I said some things I shouldn't have, made fun of someone I shouldn't have. He looked right at me. So tonight, I just want to make it right. He smiled, and for a second I thought maybe he meant it, but then he held up his phone. And I want to show you all something first, because transparency matters, right? He tapped the screen, and a projector light blinked on behind him, casting a rectangle against the garage wall. My chest went cold. He'd prepared something, a slideshow, screenshots, messages, but not the ones I had. He'd built new ones, worse, deeper fakes, ones that looked like months of conversation between me and Leah. Some of the photos looked real enough that even I had to blink twice. Laughter rippled awkwardly through the crowd. Then silence. That's what this guy does while pretending to be everyone's friend, Eli said. Some writer, huh? I looked at Leah. She wasn't laughing. She was staring at him like she didn't recognize him anymore. Eli, stop, she said. He ignored her. You think I'm lying? Ask him. He's the one who told her about my secret account. He's obsessed with us. Everyone turned to me. My throat felt dry. But then Leah stepped forward. Enough. Her voice was calm, sharp. You want transparency? Fine. She reached into her bag and pulled out a printed stack of screenshots. His screenshots. From years ago. From his own second account. These are yours, she said, voice shaking now. You forgot to delete the originals. The crowd murmured. Someone gasped. Eli's smile cracked. That's fake. They're from your phone, she said. From your backups. I watched the color drain from his face. The air went dead quiet except for the hum of the projector fan. Then Leah turned to me. You don't have to say anything. I'll handle this. In that moment, I realized something. Revenge doesn't always look like a dramatic speech or a punch thrown in public. Sometimes it's just the truth landing where it finally belongs. Eli stood there shaking, trying to talk, but the words wouldn't come. People started to drift away, whispering, Someone unplugged the speaker. The kids were called inside. Leah left first, the folder still in her hand. I waited a moment, then walked past Eli without looking at him. He said my name once, but I didn't stop. That night, Mark texted again. "You okay?" I wrote back, "I think it's over." He replied, "You sure?" I wasn't, because deep down, I knew guys like Eli didn't know how to lose quietly, and I had just watched him lose everything. Eli, "You think you won?" Eli, "You think this is over?" Eli, "You're going to see what happens when you ruin a man's life." I stared at the screen for a long moment, thumb hovering over block. Then I noticed the timestamp, 3 in the morning. I should have blocked him right there. Instead, I took screenshots, emailed them to myself, and went back to cleaning tables. The cafe was where I worked part-time between writing contracts, slow mornings, old jazz, regulars who tipped in change. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept my head clear. That morning, though, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was tightening around me again. By noon, Mark came in. He looked exhausted, wearing the same polo from last night's barbecue. "You look like hell, I said. He rubbed his eyes. "You should see Eli." "I already did. He's unraveling, man. After everyone left, he started throwing stuff, broke his grill, said you set him up. Leah called the cops when he wouldn't calm down." "Is he in jail?" "Just a night. They let him out this morning." I sighed. "Then this isn't over." Mark leaned on the counter. "He lost his job too. His company found those fake screenshots online. HR didn't buy his 'someone hacked me' story. So now he blames me for that too." "Pretty much." We stood in silence for a moment. The rain outside hit the glass in thin lines. "You want me to talk to him?" Mark asked. "No," I said. "Let it burn out." But deep down, I knew Eli didn't let anything burn out. He just found new fuel. That night, I walked home slower than usual, cutting through side streets instead of the main road. Habit, maybe paranoia. Either way, I noticed every headlight too closely. My apartment felt smaller when I got there, the kind of quiet that made you hear the pipes tick. I checked the locks twice. At 10:15, a car idled outside, not moving, not turning off the engine, just idling. I peeked through the blinds. Black sedan, driver's side light flickering. Could have been anyone. Still, I waited until it left. Over the next few days, I tried to focus on work, sent out pitches, edited blog posts, kept my distance from social media. Eli had gone silent online, which should have been good news. It wasn't. Silence meant he was planning something. Then, on Wednesday, Leah texted. "Leah, he showed up at my office." Me, "Are you okay?" Leah, "Security escorted him out. He was yelling about you." Me, "Did you call the police?" Leah, "They said it's a domestic issue. I filed a restraining order. It's temporary for now." I sat on the edge of my couch, rereading the words. Domestic issue. That was their way of saying, until someone gets hurt, it's not our problem. The next day, I woke up to find my car keyed. Deep, jagged lines across the driver's side door. 4 letters carved unevenly. Liar. The landlord called 15 minutes later. "One of your neighbors says a guy was hanging around the lot last night. Matches the description of that fella from the other day." "Tall, shaved head?" I asked. "Yeah, you want me to call someone?" "I already did," I lied. I filed a report anyway. The officer took photos, nodded, and handed me a card with a shrug. "Hard to prove this," he said. "Keep your doors locked. No follow-up, no protection. Just that." That weekend, Leah called again. Her voice was steadier this time, but there was something behind it. Determination, maybe exhaustion. "He sent me a long email," she said. 10 paragraphs about how I ruined him. Then he mentioned you again, said he's going to make things even. Did you save it? Of course. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Good. She paused. I don't know how to thank you. For what? For not letting him hide anymore. I didn't do it for you, I said quietly. I did it because he needed to stop. I know, she said. That's why it means something. A few days later, I came home to find my mailbox stuffed with envelopes, half of them blank, half filled with printed screenshots from that fake account he'd built. Same ones from the barbecue, printed in glossy ink like he'd spent money he didn't have to keep the lie alive. At the bottom of one stack was a note. Let's see how your clients like this version of you. My stomach dropped. I rushed to my laptop and checked my freelance email. There it was, 2 messages from ongoing clients saying they were reevaluating the contract. Attached were screenshots, same fakes, same dates. I typed back quickly, explaining, attaching my own proof, Leah's statements, police reports, but the damage was done. In freelance work, reputation is currency, and mine had just been spent. That night, I called Mark. I can't do this anymore, I said. You want me to handle it? I don't even know what that means anymore. Maybe talk to a lawyer. I don't have the money for that. He sighed. Then get smart. Get quiet. Let him burn himself down. But being quiet felt like letting him win again. So I did something different. I went to my closet, pulled down the old hard drive, the one with foreclosure TX'd on it, and opened it. Inside, beyond the chat logs, were the setup emails, his IP addresses, account recovery confirmations, even his payment receipts for the social media ads he'd bought to promote his site identity. It was everything I needed. I spent hours building a file. Dates, timestamps, screenshots, proof of fake accounts, proof of harassment, and a digital trail linking all of it back to him. Then, without saying a word to anyone, I sent it to his company's compliance department. Not HR, compliance. The kind of people who dealt with fraud, misuse of funds, and reputational risk. Then I went to sleep. By the next morning, my inbox had a new email from a generic address, investigations@corporate legal. Calm. Thank you for submitting this documentation. The matter is under internal review. I didn't know what that meant exactly, but it felt like movement. By afternoon, Mark texted me. Eli got suspended. They're digging through his expense reports. Something about unauthorized campaigns. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the message until it blurred. For once, I didn't feel vindicated, just tired. That night, I walked to the park near my apartment. The air smelled of wet grass and car fumes. Kids' laughter echoed from the swings, fading into streetlight hum. For the first time in weeks, I let my phone stay in my pocket. I sat on a bench, staring at the skyline, thinking about how revenge rarely looks like fire. It's paperwork, timestamps, and patience. But I also knew it wasn't over. Because people like Eli don't stop when they're cornered. They find a way to make you bleed with them. As I walked home, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, local area code. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. I answered. Static first, then a familiar voice, low and calm. You really think you can destroy me with files? I froze mid-step. Eli? He laughed softly. Let's see how calm you sound when someone posts your stuff next. Then the line went dead. That night, I backed up everything I had to cloud storage, encrypted 3 copies, and sent one to Leah with a short message. If anything happens, use this. She replied within minutes. Already did. Be careful. I didn't sleep. The city didn't either. Because somewhere out there, Eli was waiting for his last move, and I knew I wouldn't see it coming until it was already too late. I forwarded the voicemail to the detective assigned to my harassment report, though I doubted it would change anything. They'd told me last time, as long as there's no direct threat, we can't do much. So I stopped expecting help. Instead, I printed every message, every screenshot, every timestamp, and stacked them into a folder labeled E-Evidence. I didn't even know what the E stood for anymore. Eli, evidence, exhaustion, maybe all three. The quiet that followed that morning wasn't peace. It was the kind of pause you get before a storm that already knows where it's landing. At noon, Leah called. I answered before the second ring. They fired him, she said flatly. Corporate? Yeah. They found transfers from company cards to ad accounts, tens of thousands, fake invoices. They said they'll be filing charges. Jesus. He blames you, obviously. Told everyone you framed him, that you're jealous. I rubbed my forehead. Of what? I asked the same thing. She paused. He's gone dark again. His phone's off. His apartment's empty. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. I just watched rain streak the window and thought about how many times I'd wished he'd disappear and how hollow it felt now that he actually had. 2 days passed like that, quiet, heavy. Every sound in my apartment felt too loud. The kettle whistle, the fridge hum, the creak of the old floorboard near the door. Then, Friday night, a knock came, not hard, just deliberate. 3 taps, the same rhythm as before. My pulse jumped. I didn't move at first. When I finally looked through the peephole, there was no one, just an envelope on the floor. No tape this time. No handwriting. Inside were photos, printed phone screenshots again, but these were mine. Personal ones. My freelance work dashboard, my saved drafts, even an old message thread with a client about payment disputes, stuff that lived behind passwords. The last page was a sticky note, bright yellow, written in sharp ink. You have secrets too. I sat on the floor for a long time after that, not because I was scared, at least not just scared, but because he was right. Everyone had secrets. Mine just weren't the kind you could weaponize. Still, I realized how easily perception could shift. In the right hands, a cropped screenshot could ruin you faster than the truth could save you. The next morning I called Mark. Has he contacted you? I asked. Not me, but my mom said she saw him driving past Leah's place last night, twice. He's stalking her now. Probably both of you, Mark said. You should come stay at my place for a few days. I shook my head even though he couldn't see it. No, if I hide, he wins. This isn't a movie, man. You don't need to prove anything. I'm not trying to prove anything, I said quietly. I'm trying to end it. That weekend, I went through everything again. His emails, the burner accounts, even the old metadata logs. I wanted to find something final, something that tied all of this into one clean knot I could hand to the police. Buried in one of his old drafts, I found it. A single document labeled invoice template.docx. But the properties showed something different. The author name wasn't Eli's, it was Leah's. For a second, I thought maybe he'd faked that too, but the timestamps matched her old job. She'd worked in accounts payable at his company for years. He must have stolen one of her old templates to forge the invoices. My chest went tight. He hadn't just been cheating on her or harassing me. He'd been framing her too. I called her immediately. Leah, I said, did you ever make invoices for him? Ones that went to his ad accounts? What? No. I left that job before he even started the side campaign. Then you need to see what I found. We met at a small diner off Highway 9, neutral ground, fluorescent lights, the kind of place where no one looks up from their pancakes. I brought a USB drive. She brought a manila folder. She slid hers across first. His lawyer called me. They're claiming I was complicit because of the old invoice format. Said it proves I knew about the transfers. I handed her the drive. That's the proof he stole it. Metadata shows the file originated on your old work computer, not his. He copied it after you left. She blinked hard, then covered her mouth with her hand. He was setting me up. Looks that way. Why would he... She stopped, eyes watering. Because if I went down with him, I couldn't testify. I nodded. Exactly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The waitress refilled our coffees, oblivious. Outside, rain turned to sleet. Leah looked at me finally. You could have walked away from this weeks ago. I tried, I said. He kept walking toward me. That night, I emailed everything to her lawyer directly. Within an hour, he responded with one line. This changes everything. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. But peace doesn't last when you're in someone's unfinished story. Monday morning, my phone rang again. Private number. I almost didn't answer. Then a recorded voice came through. This is Officer Grant with the County Sheriff's Department. We've located Mr. Eli Turner. We'd like you to come in to verify a few details about your harassment complaint. My throat went dry. He's alive? Yes, sir. He's in custody. But we need your statement regarding the evidence chain. When? Today, if possible. At the station, everything smelled like coffee and printer toner. The officer slid a stack of papers across the desk. Incident reports, screenshots, even some of the photos from my mailbox. We executed a search warrant at his storage unit, the officer said. Found equipment tied to multiple fake accounts. Also found evidence he attempted to access your devices remotely. He hacked me. Looks that way, but there's more. He had printouts, emails, drafts, even photos of you from public events. My stomach twisted. What was he planning to do? The officer didn't answer right away. He just looked tired. We think he was trying to build a narrative, to make it look like you were harassing him. I exhaled slowly. And Leah? She's clear, thanks to what you sent. He tapped the folder. You saved her case. That night, Leah texted again. Leah, he's going to trial. They said he'll probably take a plea. Thank you. Me. Don't thank me, just start over. Leah, you should too. I stared at that line for a while. Start over. I wasn't sure how. Revenge doesn't reset anything. It just rearranges the wreckage into a shape you can live with. Still, I wanted to believe her. So I packed a few bags, left the city for a while, rented a small cabin up north, near a lake that looked too still to be real. For the first time in months, I didn't check my phone. Then, 3 weeks later, it buzzed again. Unknown number, no caller ID. I let it ring out once, twice, then voicemail. When I finally listened, the voice was different. Hoarse, softer, almost calm. You were right, about everything. But if I go down, I'm not going alone. The message ended with a sound I still can't describe. Not quite a laugh, not quite a cry. Something between the two. That night, the wind picked up outside the cabin. I sat by the window, watching pine shadows ripple against the glass, and wondered if peace was ever really possible after you'd broken someone who'd once been your friend. Then, for the first time, I let myself admit the part I'd been avoiding since the start. I had enjoyed it, a little. The exposure, the precision of it, the way silence replaced his laughter. But now, silence just felt like waiting for the next noise, waiting for the last move. It had been 4 months since the voicemail, 4 months since the last time I heard his voice through a static line. I told myself it was over. I even started working again. The small gigs came back first. Blog rewrites, product blurbs, The occasional ghostwriting job for a contractor who liked my tone. Life had gone. If not normal, then at least quieter. Until that morning. When I turned the doorknob, a folded sheet of paper slid out from the gap underneath. I didn't have to bend down to know the handwriting. Eli. It was sharp, rushed, written in pen that had bled a little into the paper fibers. You think you won. You think silence means peace. But you built this ending, not me. They'll see soon enough what kind of man hides behind the reasonable one. My throat tightened. No threats, just promises. That was his style. I didn't call the police this time. I called Leah. She answered on the second ring, voice cautious. Hello? It's me. God, you sound tired. I found another note. Where? Under my door. She sighed. He's still locked up. Last I checked. Probation violation. But they didn't release him yet. Then someone dropped it for him. She went quiet for a moment. His brother still lives nearby. That name hit harder than I expected. Ethan Turner. We'd been dorm mates briefly. Quieter version of Eli. Smarter, colder, better at hiding cruelty under civility. I'll handle it, I said. How? I just will. That night, I went through everything again. My laptop, my backups, the old drive labeled for closure. I deleted nothing, but I read every file like I was seeing it for the first time. I realized the story I'd been living wasn't just about Eli. It was about control. His, mine, everyone's attempt to own the narrative. And I'd been complicit. Every screenshot I saved, every insurance folder, every quiet victory, those were my versions of him, just tidier. Still, I wasn't ready to burn it all yet. I needed one last clean ending. 2 days later, I went downtown to the courthouse for a hearing on the fraud case. Leah had asked me to testify. She met me outside the courtroom steps, bundled in a gray coat that didn't suit her. Too big, too heavy for spring. You don't have to do this, she said. I do. Inside, Eli looked smaller. The confidence that had filled every room he entered before was gone, hollowed out by sleepless nights and cheap coffee. He didn't look at me when I took the stand. The prosecutor's questions were procedural: how I knew him, how I'd found the evidence, what I'd done with it. I answered everything cleanly, without the satisfaction I thought I'd feel. When they asked if I had anything to add, I paused, then said, I don't hate him. I just stopped believing he could change. Eli finally looked up, and for the first time, he didn't look angry. He looked scared. Outside the courthouse, Leah caught up to me. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. Just tired. She smiled faintly. That's progress. We stood in silence for a while, watching the gray clouds drag across the courthouse windows. Then she handed me a small envelope. What's this? Something you might want. Inside was a printed photo. Eli and me, college graduation. His arm over my shoulder. Both of us smiling, caps tilted crookedly like idiots who thought the world was waiting for us. I found it in an old album, she said. Thought you should have it. I studied the picture for a long time. We were kids. We still are, she said quietly. We just stopped pretending to be better ones. Weeks passed. The case ended with a plea deal. Fraud, defamation, harassment, probation, fines, mandatory therapy. He'd be out in a year, give or take. I tried not to think about what he'd do at that time. I focused on my work again. The words came easier now. Not because life was perfect, but because the noise had finally faded. Until one night, I got an email from an unknown address. Final draft. No subject line, no body text, just a file attached. I hovered over it, heart steady but curious. I opened it in a sandboxed window. Years of paranoia make you careful. It was a single sentence typed in 12-point font. You told the story well. Now tell the truth. No signature, no trace, metadata blank. But I recognized the tone. It was his, or someone who wanted to be him. I didn't forward it to the police. I didn't save it to the drive. I just printed it, folded it once, and slid it inside the same envelope as that graduation photo. Then I walked down to the lake behind my building. The water was still, black, almost reflective enough to make me hesitate. I dropped the envelope in, watched it darken and sink. Some things don't need archives. Some endings are just the decision to stop collecting proof. Now, months later, I sit at my desk writing this. Not for a lawyer, not for a therapist, but for myself. I've learned that revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just exhales. It settles into the quiet corners of your life, waiting for you to stop replaying the noise. I don't check my phone much anymore. I deleted every old chat. I started new accounts under my own name. No pseudonyms, no drafts labeled foreclosure. Leah moved out of state. Mark still checks in sometimes. And Eli, well, the last I heard, he was taking a course in digital ethics. The irony would have made me laugh once. Now it just feels like balance. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.